While walking through this museum, it is important to remember that it would not exist in this capacity today without Betty Van Newkirk. During her time, she made an impact on her coworkers, friends, and family with her altruism and devotion to the city of Frostburg. She had contributed to the community and those around her since she began involving herself in the humanities at age 2. All of her experiences and accomplishments culminate into the life of a true servant to the people and a woman who is committed to education and making the community a better place. This woman is known by the name of Betty Van Newkirk. Although she is most commonly known as Betty, her name was originally Mary Elizabeth Hemsoth Van Newkirk. When she was born, the nurse held her and responded, "That's quite a mouthful. Why not just call her Betty?"
You could ask Betty a question about the bells, and she would just start giving you background, history, family, genealogy, asset to the community. She knew our history.
In 1936, Van Newkirk graduated from Bryn Mawr College. Shortly after, she began working in the personnel department at a bank where she would administer aptitude and IQ tests to potential employees. However, Van Newkirk felt that she should be more informed about the psychology behind the process. She discovered the bank would offer tuition assistance for any schooling that would improve job performance. Although there was a class at Temple University, she felt she should study at a more prestigious institution. Instead, she chose a program leading to a master's degree at University of Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, her future husband had dropped out of high school to work in his uncle's bakery. After a few years had passed, he discovered a scholarship being offered to citizens of Maryland who would be chosen based on scores from examinations. He began serving as a graduate fellow in psychology classes at the University of Pennsylvania, including Van Newkirk's class.
They met as he was taking roll, checking people in as they came in. And he apparently thought that she looked interesting and struck up a conversation. There's a family story about her hat. He wasn't a great pickup line, I guess, but it worked. He asked her, why in the world would she wear that thing that looked like a coal scuttle?
Along with her talents and intelligence, Van Newkirk also had moral values far ahead of her time. When confronted with racial controversy in politics, Van Newkirk did what she could to help underprivileged African Americans exercise their right to vote.
It was a system that was structured to try to keep, quote, the wrong people from voting. She would walk them through, help them with the paperwork, make sure that they completed the process so they could register to vote.
After living in Virginia, Van Newkirk moved to Frostburg, unsure what to expect. One of Van Newkirk's favorite stories of Frostburg was the creation of State Normal School No. 2, which would eventually become Frostburg State University. She was inspired by the idea of the community coming together to raise the funds needed to further their education. When the Palace Theater was in danger of closing its doors, she decided that she would ensure this important locale would remain a staple of the community by saving it in quite a similar way.
She, on kind of a whim, walked up the street to a real estate office there on Main Street and asked what was being asked for the building and how much would it take to hold the building from being demolished or otherwise sold. If I remember correctly, I believe the amount she was told was that, well, $200 deposit would hold it. And she called a friend, and each of them wrote a check for $100. They formed a corporation, limited liability corporation, and requested the people of the town to do what they could.
However, her aspirations were no longer limited to conserving the history of Frostburg. Soon Van Newkirk yearned to document it. She authored 3 books, Kaleidoscope, Windows to the Past, and In the Heart of Frostburg. She also wrote over 750 articles for the Cumberland Times-News and frequently wrote about the Frostburg Museum and the Frostburg newspaper.
Since it needed to be done, and my mother was the one doing the writing, more and more of the collection of information became my mother's.
It may be easy to list Van Newkirk's accomplishments, but it would never truly capture her life. While her achievements make up a significant portion of who she was, above all, she had a personality that complemented her drive. She inspired her children to appreciate history and writing as she had all of her life. She would ask for their help in writing the articles for the newspaper to encourage the growth of their talents, leading to a close-knit, gifted family.
As she wrote them, she generally had members of the family, either my dad or anybody else that happened to be handy, to proofread them and make suggestions.
Her friends and coworkers fell in love with her intelligence, but found that it was easy to connect with a soul like Van Newkirk's. In the creation of this documentary, it was discovered that information on Van Newkirk herself is difficult to find. More documentation could be found that proved useful to other projects rather than Van Newkirk's dedicated piece. This hurdle in the process eventually led to the realization of what she truly was to Frostburg. Betty Van Newkirk was a vessel for information, a pathway towards learning about and bettering the community for others, and she was hesitant to include herself in her works with the thought that it would distract from the main purpose of her work, revealing and preserving the history of Frostburg.